I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Jennifer and I had been married for about 5 years, and honestly, everything seemed fine on the surface. We had our routines, our little routines that made life predictable. I worked a decent job in IT. She was a real estate agent, and we lived in this nice apartment building downtown. Nothing fancy, but comfortable. At least, that's what I thought. The first signs of trouble didn't come out of nowhere, but they weren't obvious either. Jennifer started acting a little different, more irritable, snapping at me over small things, and sometimes she'd be gone longer than usual when she said she was out with her friends. I chalked it up to work stress or her taking on more clients. Honestly, I didn't want to overthink it. I trusted her, or so I thought. But the real red flags began to pile up when I noticed her phone. She'd keep it with her at all times, even when she was in the bathroom or just stepping outside for a smoke. I'd catch her quickly hiding it whenever I entered the room, her face tightening like she was trying to hide. Something, minor things, I admit, but enough to make me suspicious. Still, I told myself I was overreacting. Women get protective about their phones, right? One night, Jennifer was out late. She said she was meeting her sister for dinner but came home looking flushed and a little flustered. She claimed she'd been running late because her client got cold feet about a house they were trying to buy. I didn't push her, but then I found her phone once she'd gone to bed. I was curious, so I grabbed it, just a quick peek. I wasn't snooping, I swear. I just wanted to see if she was texting anyone she shouldn't be. What I saw was a bunch of messages from a name I didn't recognize, Tommy, a number I didn't have saved. Nothing explicitly sexual, but enough to make my stomach tight. Flirty comments, jokes about meeting up, talk about keeping the secret. I felt a strange mix of anger and dread. I didn't even know she was talking to anyone named Tommy, let alone secretly meeting someone. My mind started racing. Then came the recording. I was trying to wrap my head around what I saw when I noticed something strange. One of the neighbors, Lisa, had posted a video on the building's community app. It was her recording the elevator camera footage, showing Jennifer and a guy entering one of the vacant units during the middle of the day when I was at work. The guy looked like someone I'd never seen before, tall, with dark hair, and definitely not her usual circle of friends. They looked cozy, too close for just a casual chat. That video hit me like a punch in the gut. It was clear they'd been meeting there, and from the way they acted, it wasn't just a friendly conversation. The way they touched, the way they stayed close, this was something else. That moment, everything started to fall apart inside me. I kept replaying it, trying to find some reason, some justification. But deep down, I knew. My wife had been cheating on me with a handyman, a guy named Mike, who's been maintaining our building for months now, supposedly just doing repairs and maintenance. Turns out he was more than just a handyman. I couldn't believe it. I felt betrayed, humiliated. How could she lie so blatantly? And the worst part was that I'd trusted her. I had no idea she was capable of hiding this kind of deceit. It was like waking up from a dream and realizing everything I believed about her was a lie. For days, I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I kept going over the video, replaying the moments I saw her entering that vacant unit with him. I could see her face clearly, smug, confident, like she knew she was getting away with it. I didn't confront her immediately. I needed time to process what I saw. But I also knew I couldn't just let it go. Every time I looked at her, I saw that video in my mind. I wondered how long this had been going on, how many times she'd sneaked off with Mike, passed it off as maintenance checks or off-hours work. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I had given her my trust, my loyalty, and it had been thrown back in my face. That night I sat in our living room, staring at her sleeping on the couch, her phone beside her. I felt a boiling mixture of rage, sadness, and a strange sense of betrayal. I knew I had to do something. I'd always believed in honesty and loyalty, but now everything was shattered. I didn't even know who she was anymore. This wasn't just about the cheating. It was about the fact that she had lied to me for months, maybe longer. And I was left standing here feeling like a fool, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do next. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and a mind racing faster than I could control. I had to face her, Jennifer. I didn't want to wake her up right away. I needed to figure out my next move, what to say, how to approach her without losing my mind completely. But I knew one thing, this wasn't just going to blow over. I couldn't sit idly by and pretend everything was fine. The betrayal cut deep, and I was starting to see that my marriage might be over, if I even wanted it to continue. I decided I'd confront her that morning, but I also knew I had to be careful about how I approached it. The last thing I wanted was her to become defensive, or worse, manipulate her way out of it. I had the evidence, her secret messages, the video, the fact that she'd been sneaking around during maintenance checks. I wasn't about to let her gaslight me. Still, I kept my cool, trying to come up with the right words. I didn't want her to spin some bullshit story and turn everything around on me. When she finally stirred, I was already sitting on the edge of the couch, my hands clenched into fists. She looked at me with that typical bitchy smirk, like she knew she was above suspicion, like she thought she could just brush this all off with her lies. She sat up, rubbing her eyes, and I just stared. No greeting, no small talk. "Jennifer," I said, voice calm but tight, "we need to talk, and I mean really talk." She blinked at me, that smirk still plastered on her face. "What are you talking about? Did you finally get jealous, or are you just being paranoid again?" she said, rolling her eyes. That irritated, condescending tone of hers made my blood boil. I pulled out my phone, showing her the video from Lisa. Her smirk faltered, her eyes widened just enough to give her away. Then she quickly recovered, throwing her hands up like she didn't know what I was talking about. "Oh, that's nothing," she said, brushing it off. "It's just some neighbor's silly video, you're overthinking it." But I wasn't buying it. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the way her voice cracked just a little. I pressed her harder, asking her who the guy was. She denied knowing anyone named Mike or Tommy, said I was just being paranoid, that she was sick of my accusations. She called me crazy for even doubting her loyalty, and honestly, that made me even angrier. How could she lie so effortlessly? How could she sit there and pretend that nothing was wrong? But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd seen the proof, and I knew she'd been sneaking around behind my back. The fact that she was trying to gaslight me just proved she thought she could get away with it. That was the moment I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine anymore. I told her I was done with her bullshit, that I knew she'd been cheating, and I wanted the truth. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she spat back. "You don't have any proof, Jack. You're just imagining things, you always think the worst." But I was done doubting myself. I showed her the messages, the video, everything I had. That's when she finally snapped, claiming she was just bored, that it meant nothing, that he was just a handyman she hung out with sometimes. She even accused me of being jealous and insecure. That's when I realized her lies were just getting more elaborate, more desperate. She was good at lying, but I wasn't born yesterday. I'd caught her in a web of deceit, and I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of it. I told her I wasn't playing her games anymore. I was done. I wanted a divorce, and I wanted her to leave. Her face went pale, then red with anger. She yelled at me, calling me a control freak, saying I didn't understand her, that she was entitled to her fun and her freedom. I felt my heart pounding because I knew this was only the beginning. This wasn't just about her having an affair. It was about the betrayal, the lies, the manipulation. All the years I'd trusted her, and she'd been sneaking around, lying to my face. I got up and told her I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. If she wanted to cheat, she could do it alone. I wasn't going to be part of her lies anymore. I told her to pack her stuff and leave that day. I wanted her out of my house, out of my life. She stormed off, crying and yelling, but I felt nothing but a strange sense of relief, mixed with heartbreak. I never thought I'd be the one dumped, betrayed, humiliated like this. But I knew I had to do what was right for me. I'd held on to her for so long, hoping things would get better, but every moment that passed, I saw more clearly that this was the end. I was tired of her lies, her attitude, her bitchy smirk, and her sneaky meetings with some handyman she clearly thought she could fool me with. That night, I sat alone in the apartment, looking at the empty space where she used to sleep. The silence was deafening. I didn't sleep much that night, just lay there, thinking about everything, the good times, the bad times, the lies, the betrayal. I kept asking myself how I'd let it get this far, how I'd been blind, trusting someone who had no respect for me or our marriage. But at the same time, I knew one thing for sure: I'd be better off without her. I'd lost her, but I was starting to feel like I was finally waking up. The days that followed were a blur of emotion, anger, sadness, a strange kind of relief. I knew I had to move on somehow, but the pain of betrayal still gnawed at me. I spent hours going over everything in my head, trying to figure out what I could have done differently, but mostly just replaying that moment I saw her with him, knowing I'd been played for a fool for so long. I decided to do some digging into Mike, the handyman. I figured if she was cheating with him, there had to be some way to confirm it beyond the video. I started asking around the building, talking to neighbors, trying to get a sense of how often she was meeting him, if anyone else had seen her sneaking around. I knew I was crossing lines, but my mind was clouded with rage and heartbreak, and I didn't care. I found out that Lisa, the neighbor who recorded the video, had seen her go into one of the vacant units more than once, always during odd hours. She also mentioned that Mike had been around the building more often than just for maintenance, always looking busy, always around those empty units. One thing led to another, and I ended up hiring a private investigator. I hadn't planned on it, but the betrayal cut so deep that I needed confirmation, proof I could hold in my hands. I wanted to see her face, her lies shattered. I wasn't just angry, I was determined to get the truth, no matter what. The investigator came back with footage. It was what I expected but wanted to see for myself. Pictures of her going into that vacant unit with Mike, sometimes in the middle of the day, other times late at night. They weren't just meeting for small talk or fixing a broken door. No, there were moments of physical closeness, gestures that go beyond simple handyman-client interactions. I saw her kissing him, her hands on his chest like she owned him, and that smug look she always had when she thought she was getting away with something. Seeing those pictures was like a punch to the stomach. I felt sick all over again, only this time with a bitter taste of betrayal I couldn't wash away. The worst part was realizing I'd been played, not just by her but by this man who had no shame. He was supposed to be fixing things, maintaining the building, but he was secretly screwing my wife. And she, that bitch, had lied about everything, about her meetings, her feelings, her innocent encounters. She had been using me, fooling me into thinking she was loyal. I remember sitting in my apartment, staring at the images on my phone, feeling a mix of fury and devastation. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face for so long? I kept asking myself that over and over, but the answer was painfully clear. She didn't respect me. She never did. She thought she could cheat, lie, manipulate her way out of everything, and I'd never find out. Well, she was wrong. I decided I had to confront her. Again, but this time with the evidence in hand. I wanted to hear her explanation, her excuses, her lies, whatever she would say to try to twist this around. I wasn't going to hold back anymore. I called her that afternoon, told her I knew everything and wanted her to come over. She hesitated, then agreed, her voice trembling. That alone told me I'd hit a nerve. When she arrived, she looked nervous, like she knew I was onto her. I laid out the pictures, the evidence I had gathered, and her face twisted into a mixture of anger, panic, and defiance. "You're crazy," she spat, trying to deny everything. "This is all just some stupid misunderstanding." But I was done with her lies. I told her I had all the proof I needed, that I wasn't going to be her fool anymore. Her response was classic. She yelled, called me paranoid, accused me of being controlling, and said she was entitled to her fun outside the marriage. She argued she was unhappy, that I was too boring, too predictable, and that I should get over it. But I wasn't buying her bullshit anymore. This wasn't about her being unhappy. This was about her being a lying, manipulative woman who thought she could do whatever she wanted and I'd never find out. I told her she had to leave. That day. That very moment. I wasn't going to let her stay and keep spinning her lies. She started crying, begging, saying she loved me, that she didn't mean to hurt me. But I couldn't listen to her anymore. I knew she had no respect for me, no remorse, no shame. She packed her bags while I watched, feeling numb, like I'd been punched in the gut repeatedly. That night I stayed alone in that empty apartment, feeling hollow. I knew I'd lost her, but part of me also felt a strange sense of relief. The truth was out, and I didn't have to pretend anymore. The betrayal was brutal, but it opened my eyes to the kind of person she truly was. I kept looking at the pictures of her with Mike, thinking about how she'd lied, manipulated, used me. I couldn't help but wonder how long she'd been doing this, what else she'd lied about. All I knew for sure was that I wouldn't be a fool. Again, I'd rebuild my life, even if it meant starting over from scratch. The days after she left felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I was caught between shock, anger, relief, and a creeping sense of loss I didn't know how to handle. I stayed in that empty apartment, trying to breathe through the ache in my chest, trying to process what had happened. The betrayal was one thing, but the way she lied, the way she played me for months, like I was some idiot she could deceive, kind of made me feel like I'd been living in a bad dream. I couldn't handle the silence. Every corner of the apartment reminded me of her. Her scent still lingered on some of her clothes, and every time I looked at her side of the bed, I felt a punch in the stomach. I kept asking myself what I'd done wrong, how I could have missed the signs. But deep down, I knew this was never about me. It was about her choices, her lies, her total disregard for what we had. I decided I needed to get out of that apartment, to clear my head and take control of my life again. I rented a small place nearby just to give myself some space. Moving out wasn't easy. There was a lot of stuff I had to pack, memories I couldn't escape. I was angry at myself for trusting her, for giving her the benefit of the doubt for so long. But mostly, I was angry at her for cheating, for lying, for making a fool out of me. One thing I did was start digging into her social media, something I never thought I'd do before. I wanted to see if she was still lying, still hiding her tracks. Turns out she was. She was posting pictures with her friends, pretending everything was fine, acting like she was still the perfect wife. But I knew better. I had proof, more than enough to see she was still up to her games, even after she left. She had some new guy she was chatting with, based on some messages I found. It was clear she hadn't given up her cheating ways. That realization made me feel even more bitter. She thought she could just walk away, leave me behind and start over, but she was wrong. I stayed up late one night scrolling through her messages, analyzing every word, every emoji. She was still lying, still scheming. I couldn't believe how someone I'd trusted could turn out to be so manipulative, so utterly selfish. I also reached out to the neighbors, especially Lisa. I wanted to thank her for recording that video, for being brave enough to share it with me. I asked her if she'd seen anything else, any signs I might have missed. She told me she'd been suspicious for a while, seeing Jennifer disappear during random times, acting secretive. She said she felt guilty about recording the video, but she knew I had to see the truth. That helped me realize I wasn't overreacting, that this was real, that I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. As much as I wanted to drown my sorrows in alcohol or just forget everything, I knew I had to stay strong. I started hitting the gym, trying to get my head straight. I also started seeing a counselor, just to talk through all the feelings choking me inside. It helped a little, gave me some clarity. I realized I'd been holding onto the idea of us, what we once had, rather than accepting that she'd changed, that she was no longer the person I thought I knew. One night I found myself staring at her old pictures, remembering the good times. It hurt, but it also made me realize something. I deserved better. I deserved someone who was honest, loyal, who wouldn't lie and cheat behind my back. I'd been blinded by love, but now I could see clearly. She was toxic, manipulative, and unfaithful, so I made a decision. I wasn't going to chase after her, beg her to come back, or try to fix what was broken. She had made her choice, and I wasn't going to be a part of that anymore. I would rebuild my life piece by piece. I started planning my future, new job opportunities, new hobbies, new people to meet. I knew it would take time, probably a long time, but I was determined to move forward. Looking back, I realize I've learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's almost impossible to repair. You can't change someone who doesn't want to grow, or someone who thinks their lies don't matter. But you can pick yourself up, learn from it, and become stronger. I don't regret knowing the truth, even if it hurts like hell. Maybe someday I'll find someone who actually deserves my trust, my love. But for now, I have to focus on healing and moving on from the woman who thought she could cheat and lie her way out of what she did. The weeks turned into a month, then two. I threw myself into rebuilding, trying to stay busy, trying not to think about her or what she did. It wasn't easy. Every time I thought about her, I'd get a flash of that video, the pictures, her lying to my face. I drank a lot less, even went out with friends some nights just to keep from spiraling. But deep inside, I knew I wasn't done yet. Not just with her, that part was over, but with everything, the truth about who she was and what I allowed myself to tolerate. One day, I decided I had to face the reality that I was probably better off without her, no matter how much it hurt. I started looking into divorce options, gathering the necessary documents, talking to a lawyer. I wanted out clean, no messy lingering. I didn't want her coming back trying to manipulate her way into my life again. I was done with the lies, the cheating, the manipulations. That chapter of my life was closing and I had to accept it. But just when I thought I'd moved past the worst, fate threw me another curveball. A new neighbor moved into the apartment next door. Her name was Emily, and she was a single mother trying to start fresh after a messy breakup. She was kind, understanding, and honest. We struck up a friendship, and I found myself opening up to her about everything. About Jennifer, the betrayal, the heartbreak. She listened, didn't judge, and that was more than I could say for anyone else at that point. What started as casual conversation soon turned into something more. I was starved for genuine connection, and Emily seemed to fill that void. We'd go out for coffee, talk about life, about trust and betrayal, and she always had this calming presence that I'd been craving. I never expected to find someone like her, especially not just a few months after everything fell apart. It happened naturally, almost without me realizing it. She brought light back into my life where darkness had once settled. But I knew better than to rush into anything. I kept my guard up, wary of getting hurt again. Still, I couldn't ignore how much I looked forward to seeing her, how much she made me laugh, how comfortable I felt around her. It was a strange kind of healing, gradually learning to trust someone again, even if it was just a little at a time. One evening, I finally felt ready to talk about Jennifer with Emily. I told her everything, the video, the messages, the affair, the breakup. She listened quietly, her face softening with sympathy. She told me I deserved all the happiness I could find, that I shouldn't let one toxic person ruin my outlook on love and trust forever. Her words became a sort of balm for my wounded soul. For the first time since everything happened, I started to believe I could be okay. That night, I made a decision. I would file for divorce, finalize everything legally. I'd put Jennifer behind me completely. I owed it to myself to move forward, to build a future where I was respected and valued. I also knew I had to be honest with Emily, about my past, about what I'd been through. I didn't want to bring baggage into this budding relationship, but I also didn't want to hide the truth. I wanted to be real, sincere. So I told her everything and she listened without judgment. We agreed to take things slow to see where this could go. I knew I wasn't ready for anything serious yet, but I felt hopeful. For the first time in months, I was smiling again, genuinely. I started to see a future beyond the pain, beyond the betrayal, beyond the lies. I learned a lot from all this, mostly about myself, about how trust is fragile but also how resilience is stronger. I realized I had to stop blaming myself for her choices. I was a good guy, and I deserved better. I deserved honesty, loyalty, respect. And I was finally starting to believe I'd find that again someday. It's a long road, but I'm walking it now, one step at a time, leaving her behind and focusing on healing and rebuilding a life that isn't based on betrayal. Looking back now, I realize that the whole ordeal changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe in fairy tale endings, thought that if you loved someone enough, you could fix anything, even betrayals of this magnitude. But I learned that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes people just aren't who you thought they were, and holding onto a broken version of a relationship only drags you down. Getting betrayed so deeply made me question everything, my judgment, my instincts, my worth. But through all the hurt and chaos, I found a strange clarity. I learned that self-respect matters more than anything, and that sometimes you have to walk away from someone who doesn't treat you right. I also learned that honesty is the foundation of any real trust, and once that's shattered, rebuilding is almost impossible. Jennifer's betrayal was a wake-up call, one I desperately needed. It forced me to reevaluate what I want from life and from a partner. I came to understand that I deserve someone who values me, who respects me, and who doesn't think they're entitled to cheat behind my back. I don't regret discovering her lies. I just regret not seeing the signs sooner. But now I see clearly, and I refuse to settle for anything less than honesty and loyalty. Emily has been a revelation. She's shown me that there's still kindness and genuine connection out there. We're taking things slow, but I feel hopeful for the first time in a long while. She's helped me see that healing is possible and that life can still be beautiful, even after betrayal. As I sit here, reflecting on everything I've been through, I want to tell anyone reading this, trust your gut. Pay attention to the signs, no matter how small. If you suspect someone is cheating or lying, don't ignore it. Confront it, face it. Because truth always comes out, sometimes in ways you never expect. Protect yourself. Respect yourself enough to walk away from people who don't deserve your loyalty. And if you're going through something similar, know this: you're stronger than you think. You will survive. You will heal. And someday you'll look back and realize that what once felt like the end was really just a new beginning. The pain will fade, the trust can be rebuilt, and life still has plenty of good things in store for you. Just hold on, stay true to yourself, and never settle for less than what you deserve.